Do you want one of the 2 rarest mounts in Wrath of the Lich King? Or maybe sweet 245 item level gear that would be bis for you right now? There's a brand new raid coming in Phase 3 that nobody's talking about, and it might just be the easiest loot in the game. So stay tuned as we head to Dustwallow Marsh to slay the dragon and get the reins of the Onyxian Drake. So as some backstory, in Wrath originally there was a big celebration for the 5th anniversary of the game. Part of the celebration was the newly renovated Onyxia raid designed for level 80 characters. Blizzard went all out with the rebalancing, offering both 10 and 25-man modes. And of course, there were plenty of nostalgia-inducing item drops. They even added the Reins of the Onyxian Drake, a 2% drop item that will have you coming back week after week. On June 22nd, we'll be able to head back to Dustwallow Marsh to battle Onyxia in a raid specifically built for level 80s. The fastest way to get to the raid to start summoning is the Theramore Port and then flying down to Mudsprocket. Or you could just go to Orgrimmar and fly down due to Horde privilege. Outside the entrance to Onyxia, you'll notice a brand new NPC. This NPC gives you a buff that lets you enter the level 60 version if you want to. No matter which version you do, there's no attunement, so you can enter without any questions. But before we cover the mechanics and the loot, we need to cover the raid difficulty. Originally in vanilla, this raid was released 49 days after Trial of the Crusader. That's why a lot of the loot you'll be seeing is equal or better than TOC loot. The thing is though, in 2023, this raid's a lot closer to Vault of Archivon difficulty than Trial of the Crusader. On the PTR in my testing, we were able to do this raid with Ulduar and Fresh Geared players randomly thrown together. It was still a one-shot breeze, which makes Onyxia perfect for class and spec runs. I could honestly see Onyxia being farmed with less than 20 players to maximize loot and mount rolls. So we have to cover the raid comp. The important thing in 10 and 25 man is to have at least 2 tanks. For 10 man, you should also have 2 healers even if you have 1 monster healer. That's because the fight is pretty random and people can still get one shot. In 25 man though, I definitely run at least 3 healers. You also want to mix up physical and ranged DPS, preferably more range than melee. Jumping into the fight, the pull is the hardest part. Your tank needs to get in there fast with rocket boots or charge and flip the boss to face the back wall. The tank should be close to the wall because Wing Buffet will knock the tank backward slightly. Meanwhile, the DPS should all be on the left side wall and DPSing the side of Onyxia. The biggest danger is being in front of Onyxia because she has Cleave and Flame Breath. She also has an ability called Tail Sweep, so don't stand behind her or near her back. So once Onyxia reaches 65%, she'll fly into the air to begin Phase 2. This is when Onyxian whelps will spawn and they need to be picked up by the tank. These should be the main priority since they can really be AoE down quickly. Also every 30 seconds, Onyxian layer guards will spawn. These need to be picked up immediately and preferably by a second tank. The layer guards need to be tanked slightly away from the group because they cast a 5-second Blast Nova and we don't want some half-asleep guy dying to it. DPS just make sure to run out whenever Blast Nova is cast or you will get one shot. Also, the layer guards use an ability called Ignite Weapon. This deals really nasty cleave damage, so disarm is great as well as minor tank defensive cooldowns. The other key to Phase 2 is to avoid the Flame Breath, which is essentially a one-shot. The Flame Breath path is based on the direction Onyxia is facing when she says the line, Onyxia takes a deep breath. You should move as a group together, but stay lightly spread. That's because every 2 seconds, Onyxia will also cast a Fireball, which has an AoE of 10 yards around the affected target. Once you get Onyxia to 40%, Phase 3 will begin and Onyxia will land. The main tank should immediately pick up Onyxia and position her near the back wall just like Phase 1. Onyxia will be casting Bellowing Roar, which is a 3-second fear. This can be tremored, and I would definitely recommend fear warding the tank to avoid Onyxia facing the raid. After the first Bellowing Roar, this is the optimal time to cast Bloodlust and unload your big cooldowns. Meanwhile, the off tank should continue picking up whelps as they spawn, though you don't really need to kill these in Phase 3. Alright, so she's dead. How about that loot? So the big piece of loot everybody wants is the Reins of the Onyxian Drake. The mount only has a 2% drop chance, so you'll be very lucky to ever see it throughout Wrath. Not only is this mount a gorgeous custom model, but it's also 310 speed. If you missed your Violet Proto Drake, here's your replacement. With the mount out of the way, let's check out the rest of the gear. There's a 232 item level cloak and a 245 item level cloak available for casters. These are guaranteed to be an upgrade for you unless you have a 252 cloak, so they'll be very contested. For melee, the Raging Deathbringer is going to be high on your list of weapons. It even has a chance on hit to smack the target with a 1600 Shadow Bolt. I'm also looking to get a polished Azursong Mage Blade, which should hold me over until I get Abyss Weapon. Overall, if you want a top 5 weapon, this raid has a bunch of options. And speaking of weapons, we can't forget the Cornerstone Grimoire offhand. You may remember this is the very desirable offhand that summoned a skeleton. Unfortunately though, a lot of the stats seem to have gone into the skeleton part, and he only does about 74 DPS. On top of all this, every kill in the 10 and 25 man will give you a 22 slot bag. You'll also get a bag of gems containing 1 to 3 epic gems. We also can't forget the Oni Head, which gives you a one-time quest turn-in. There's no fanfare this time, no world buffs, or even an announcement. You do get some very solid 245 item level jewelry, which is likely an upgrade for you. For my Resto Druid, I plan to grab the Spell Power ring since it's better for me than the 245 emblem ring. Also, these rings are not unique equipped. In my testing, if you faction transfer, you could actually turn in the opposite faction's quest and have 2 rings. So these Onyxia changes are great catch-up loot, but there's a lot of new changes coming in Trial of the Crusader too. Check out my Trial of the Crusader loot guide to get caught up on everything new.